Welcome to another awesome episode today with Jille Prescott. I had an opportunity to listen to Jill's talk just about a month ago, and I was so impressed with what this lady represents and what she stands for. So I was so happy that she said yes to join me today at this podcast. So who is Jille? Jille is a spiritual badass, a best-selling author of No More Effing Secrets, international speaker and workshop facilitator. She is committed to leading women through trauma to freedom with love. Welcome, Jille. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this stuff. I love any time that I can get into a conversation about evolution and our expansion. I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, we are on the same page when it comes to this. These conversations really need to happen and need to happen on massive levels so that people really can grow and expand their consciousness. So thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Jille, I've heard your story, which is absolutely amazing. You are one strong woman. And could you share a little bit about yourself with our audience?
Sure. Maybe I'll just start from the shift or when thing happened. You know, I was just a person going through my life that had dealt with a lot of trauma from childhood and even in my adult years. And I was doing what a lot of us do. I was stuffing it down. I was pretending it didn't happen, that I wasn't impacted, that the little bit of work that I'd done before was enough and that I was perfectly okay. So, and then, you know, oftentimes, and you'll hear the story from different people, if we are not really following the highest calling for ourselves in this particular lifetime, things will occur to shift them for us. And you've probably heard of a Kundalini awakening, which is essentially, how I describe it is, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, first you get a little tap on the shoulder, and then you get a little shoulder shake, and then sometimes you get slapped, and eventually, if you're still not listening, you get thrown against the wall. So how that throw against the wall looked for me was through, I manifested brain lesions. So I was having problems with my memory and losing time, confusion around where I was. I would go out in my car, go for a drive to and from work, which I did over and over. And I would have to pull over sometimes after work and have no idea where I was, and I'd be 2 blocks from home. So that's how it manifested for me. That was like the big shakeup, and that was back just about 5 years ago now.
Okay.
So that started me on this other inquiry of, okay, there's something else going on here. When I heard Kundalini awakening, I realized that it was much more than just a physical thing, but it really was a call to step into my truth. So I left a 20-year career in the automotive industry as a financial services manager, and I walked into the work that I do now, which is a constant evolution. So.
Wow, that is awesome. This is the part I don't know if I even got this part. Like, I don't know, did you share that much?
No.
You didn't, right? Because I'm like, I figured it's the first time. So there's more about you that what I knew. And you see, that's so exciting. You talk to people several times and you learn more and more about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do talk about secrets. Were the secrets basically that caused what was going on with you?
Absolutely. I would say that was the biggest part of what was happening for me, is that I wasn't speaking what was really going on for me. I was burying it over and over again. And there was, even if some people knew a little bit about the story, they didn't know the whole story. No, I wasn't talking about the impact. I mean, even in my second marriage, the stuff that was going on in that marriage, I never spoke about for a long time. And then, of course, just, you know, the things from my childhood and growing up and started to understand that if we cannot speak our truth powerfully, there is an energetic creation within us, usually I would like to call it a block, that does not go away. And so we end up living half a life. Mm-hmm. It's worse than dying. It's that we don't live. So And, you know, as I did that, as I stepped into this work, what I was discovering was one of the most powerful things that happen when a woman works with me, when I'm doing one-on-one work with a woman, is for her to disclose secrets in a safe and sacred space and be witnessed for it and honored for it. The shift that happens in their lives is so dynamic that I kept digging around. Okay, there's more to this. There's more to it. It's so interesting. When I wrote the book, I realized how that thread had been playing out over and over and over again in my life. So, you know, we're led, right? If we just keep saying yes. I didn't know what I was going to write or why I was writing it, but boy, once she was birthed, holy smokes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And you know what? I so agree what you're saying about the secrets, because I know I had a talk, I think it was 2 years ago now, probably, with a group of women. And we talked actually exactly about what you just said right now, about not keeping secrets. And I said, pick a partner and share something you never shared with anybody before. And wow, was that a profound experience. And, you know, I know, because I was keeping my secrets for years and years, right? There's lots of shame around some things and, you know, unpleasant emotions. And so once I shared that, it was like, wow, nothing can touch me anymore. It's all out there. I'm free. It's like,
yes, yes, because you see, the thing is, once you speak it once, it can't be a secret anymore.
That's right.
So what happens is when these things are kept inside of us, essentially what we do is we build a wall around ourselves. And the wall is built of guilt and shame. In most cases, that's what's surrounding us. Whether it's our volition that it happened or it isn't, whether we're the victim or the perpetrator, no matter what it is, those two things, the three things actually, guilt, shame, and fear, all go hand in hand to keep us suppressed in the secret. So even if you know that you want to speak it, and even if you know that you're not guilty and there's nothing there, it'll come from outside of you. A lot of people, it's the family that doesn't want them to tell.
Yeah.
Nobody else wants you to share it. So you're still carrying this massive freaking burden of this thing, you know, and it just becomes normal, which is the scary part.
It is.
Because once you start, you don't stop. Once you start keeping them, you become a secret keeper.
Yeah.
And what I found in my life, and I look back on it now, that turned into me being a liar, which people do not want to admit to. And I certainly did not want to admit to it, but I became a liar. And I don't mean like I was going out and telling big lies to people and being harmful, but I was lying in my life. I was lying about how I was doing. I was lying about my success. I was lying about my relationships. That's how it was, because it felt safer than telling the truth.
Yes. And I think that's where majority of people are stuck, because they feel it's safer, but in reality it's hurting their health. Certain relationships, well, every aspect of their life, really, right?
Yeah, every aspect, yes.
How would you recommend to people to find the courage and, you know, just be honest with themselves, with the world, and come out, basically out of their secret closet, whatever it is?
Yeah, so, you know, here, I'm just going to put a little caveat to this. I have felt called to share this, my secrets. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything about anything, and most things I will share publicly. However, that's not how it has to be. This is a part of my calling. This is a part of the manifestation of my purpose. This is how I'm showing up in the purpose for me in this lifetime.
Yes.
Even if it's just one person that you trust deeply, to energetically release that, it will open doors for you in your heart space, in your energy, in all of you. What you might find, and what most people do, is that once they share it with somebody that they really trust, it becomes easier the next time to share it with somebody else and somebody else and somebody else and somebody else, until the energy of it completely let goes.
Yes.
So the very first thing you do in any of this is to acknowledge it for yourself. Like, get real with yourself, that you understand the impact that it's had on your life.
Yeah.
Get real about it, man, because we don't want to. We do not want to look at the impact most of the time. But when you really start looking, and if you need help looking, then find somebody to walk it with you. We don't do this life alone for a reason. And then you share it and get it out of your system, whether it's with, a professional, or it's with somebody that you just trust in your family or your friends network or whatever it is. Just get it out of your system. And then there's work to do from there.
Absolutely. And what I figured out about these secrets is, once I actually told him to my coach that I had at the time. He was probably doing very similar work as you, because he was just going, what else didn't you ever told anybody? But once it was out in the open, it wasn't as scary as it looked while it was hidden. It was like, okay, I'm not the only person this has happened to. There are others, and they're talking about it. So why am I so, I'm just a normal human being. There's nothing wrong with me, right?
Yes, and that's another part. We actually think that we're the only ones. There's a part of us that really believes that we're the only one.
Yeah.
And so it really is, that's where the fear part comes in. What's going to happen? I know for myself, when I first went to a counselor when I was in my 20s, he said to me, Jill, when you talk about this and you talk about telling your parents what happened, the fear is so deep, it's like you think they're literally going to die. So that's how intense it can get for us, that we actually think our words will kill people.
Yes.
Not logically, of course, but there's a part of us that is in such fear that it's like that for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you be willing to share what happened? Because I know your story. Some of our listeners probably don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was such a profound thing, what you did with the girl years later. So if you would share.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the summer that I was turning 10, I got involved with the 3 sisters actually in the neighborhood, and there was 2 older and 1 younger. The oldest one would have been about 17 at the time. And there was a lot of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse going on through that entire summer. So what you heard was just a little portion of what had happened. But it was much more than that. And it was very traumatizing through that time. And I never told anyone, ever, until I was in my 20s. After that, at 16, I was raped. And another part of this that you probably don't know either is that after the rape, I was in a relationship with the man I would end up marrying, my first husband. And I woke up one morning with a lot of pain, and my mother took me to the hospital. I would have been about 17 at the time. And it turned, so they were asking me at the hospital, are you sexually active? And I denied it. I said, no. I told the doctor no. I told my mother no. They kept coming back in and going, it's okay to tell us. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to be in trouble. And I said, no, I refused to say that I was sexually active. So what they did is they went in and they took my appendix out. Years later, I found out that what had happened was there was an ectopic pregnancy in the one tube. So they had removed the appendix on one side, which caused scar tissue, had an ectopic pregnancy on the other side, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically the pregnancy gets stuck in the fallopian tube. Because it had never been removed, it created scar tissue. And scar tissue on the other side from the removal of the appendix, and there was nothing wrong with my appendix. And it cost me the possibility of having children. So I was pregnant 4 more times after that. And I desperately wanted them. It was always something I was majorly fascinated. So that secret cost me the chance of raising my own child. Wow. So I really get the impact of keeping secrets. I really have had a lot of experience in it. So I just want to say this because it's so important you guys get why I share this stuff. It's not because I'm looking for sympathy. It's not because I'm looking for someone to say, you poor thing. It's not about that. What I want you to see is the strength. Mm-hmm. What I want you to see is that everything that I've been through is now medicine for my medicine bag. So when you come to me and say, Jill, there's this thing I've never told anyone, I can hold beautiful space for you. So I really believe that our true manifestation of purpose in this lifetime is found in our deepest pain.
Yes. And that is so true. We either grow from our story, what happened, and we become victors, right? Or it destroys us. And I would really prefer that everybody would choose to rise above it, learn from it, and really become strong person. One thing that I would like you to tell us was the aspect of the 17-year-old girl. Later on, you contacted her, right? Years later. Would you share with us?
Yeah, I did. There's something going on with the audio, by the way. I'm not sure what it is.
I can hear you clear. It's all
okay. Good.
Yeah.
Yes. So once I had went into therapy, after that had happened, I told my parents when I was in therapy, and then I did some more personal development work. And I realized something as I started to dig around about why this stuff happens, because I needed to know why would someone want to do something like that? And what I discovered is that most of the time, the perpetrator has been a victim, a lot of the time, because, I mean, she was still a girl. She was only 17, right? And her sister, her older sister, was probably 14 or 15 at the time, and the younger one too. So there's no way it's just not normal to be the way that happens. So I called her, and I asked her, first of all, what happened when we were kids? Were you also abused? And she said, yes, she had been. And I said, I want to know how your children are, because the thing for me was, had the pattern been broken, had that, what had been happening stopped.
Yes.
And she said, yes, it had. So what was really beautiful about that whole thing to me was that not only was she breaking the cycle as a perpetrator, but she was healing as a victim as well.
Yeah.
So by being able to share her story, even, I don't know who she shared it with, I don't know how she did her healing, it was one conversation. I just know that in that, it came really clear to me that the work of releasing yourself is powerful.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing this, because I think it gives us all instructions or example of how forgiveness works, right? Because you had to go through forgiveness to be able to give her a call and have that conversation with her.
Yeah.
And something beautiful came out of it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being such a strong example for all of us.
You're welcome.
And tell me, how do you really go from that victim to a victor? There must be a shift or a process to do that.
There's a huge process. And you know what, Melania, it's a little different for everybody, but there are some commonalities. There's like a few things that really have to happen. And first one is being responsible. So I talk about this a lot, where I say we have to take 100% responsibility for our lives. And that doesn't mean that things don't happen that feel out of our control and all of that, but there's something really powerful in it. So if I had decided, you know what, I'm just a victim, this is awful, it shouldn't have happened, it's their fault, they did something to me and they ruined my life, where I would be right now is right there still. Mm-hmm. I would still be a 9-year-old girl suffering. Yes. But the moment that I took responsibility for it, and I don't mean that I said it's my fault, I mean I took responsibility for my life and how I was going to react to it and how I was going to use it, then I got all my power back. So I removed power from the perpetrator and brought it back to myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about responsibility. Forgiveness is another part of it. And again, there's always a collapse with this stuff. Forgiveness does not mean or make what happened okay. It doesn't mean that the person, the perpetrator, or even you, that what you did wasn't a mistake and wasn't, was a good thing to happen. It's not about that. But it does mean, really, forgiveness at its core is understanding that beneath all of our humanity, beneath all of the actions that we are in this human form, we are at the center of ourselves, divine love.
Yes.
So we look through the humanity and we see that divine love in another, and we connect heart to heart that way, and that's where the forgiveness comes in. Yeah. So we'll start with forgiveness to heal ourselves, but on a more macro level, we're actually forgiving, when we're forgiving another, on a macro level, we're forgiving ourselves, and we're actually making a shift in humanity when we do this. So it becomes a massive gift that you're giving.
Absolutely. And one thing that she said remind me of something. When we have a story, when something happens to us, if you look at it from that point of being a victim, and imagine if you think that way, if you see only bad stuff in it, where will that take you, let's say 10 years from today? And you kind of do the future pacing, right? How that your life will play out. You would probably go, I don't want to experience that. But if you learn the lessons and you go, okay, what could I do differently? Or what did I learn? Or what was the gift I got in this, right? Was it strength or awareness, whatever it was? And then from this point, you future pace your life 10 years from today. How would your life turn out then? That way, the picture would be much, much more appealing. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. You're absolutely right on that. And when something happens like this, there is pain. There's no doubt about that. It was painful. And I'm not going to say I would like to have it happen again. I wouldn't. It wasn't fun.
Thank you. Why would you? No, yeah.
However, once we're through it, once it's happened, we're on the other side. The worst has already happened and we survived it and we're still alive. From there, you have a choice. You can either suffer or heal. Because all suffering is optional.
Yes.
It's optional. Pain's not optional. Pleasure's not optional. We're going to feel both of those things in this lifetime. But suffering, we get to choose.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. It's our perspective that makes us suffer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our view of it. And it's so interesting to me because, of course, if someone else that was involved in this story told the story, they would tell it completely differently.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. You can have two people experiencing the same thing at the same time, and they're going to tell different stories.
That's right. And so this is the other part of it. People are afraid that, and I was too when I first started talking about this, is that what if I don't remember it exactly right? What if I don't have the details down? What if I don't? And I thought, no, I'm speaking to my experience. I'm not saying what theirs was. I am not trying to take on how anybody else felt. I'm not, even when I talk about, the experience of sharing with my mom and my dad, I don't know what they were really experiencing. I don't know what they would say about it. All I know is that I'm going to share from my experience as authentically as is possible.
Yes.
So that's what I want to say to other people, is it really is about that. It's really about sharing it as authentically as possible, as truthfully as you can as is possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And do you think that the pain we are going through in life, like, stories like yours, and I have my story, and I think everybody has their stories, depending to what degree, do you think that these stories carry a seed of our life purpose that, from the pain, that's where actually it's hiding the life
every
purpose?
Time. Yeah, every time. Every single time. See, we didn't come to this earth and manifest into this particular form as a human being so that everything could be rosy all the time. That's not what we chose. And not only is it part of our purpose, but it is an experience of life to be witnessed for what it is. And I'll say this again, I said this earlier, we find our manifestation of our purpose in our pain every single time. That's just how it opens. That's just that's where we can start looking for it. And I really believe that we all have the same purpose here.
Yeah.
And that's to be an expression of divine love on the planet, to continue to work towards an evolution of the vibrational level. And then each person has their own manifestation of that purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and we find that in the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how long did it take for you to truly get your purpose, that you knew that this is what you're supposed to do?
I think it's constantly evolving.
Yes.
You know, I started pretty quick after the whole Kundalini thing, after the brain lesions, which, by the way, within a year were gone after I started doing the work, the spiritual journey work. I really feel like I had no choice anymore. I would not recommend people do what I did, which is basically throw myself off the cliff. I literally destroyed everything in my life. Everything got torn down and taken away during that part of my journey, because it needed to. Everything that was left to be demolished, that wasn't love, got demolished. And it's been a rebuilding process for the last 5 years as I put the business together, and it's in constant evolution. If there's the one thing that I keep coming back to over and over again, that I bounce everything off, is this something that is going to evolve humanity in a way that they see themselves as love? Is that if I do this offering, if I work one-on-one, if I create a workshop, if I do a talk, is it going to bring people back to themselves and to that love, that source of love that we actually are? Is it going to remind people of our oneness?
Wow.
And if it is, then I'm gonna test it out. And if it isn't, I'm not doing it.
And that's such a great advice, really great advice. And I think that we all should be coming from that space, no matter what's the occupation or what's the work somebody does. But is it going to be of service? Let's say for me, right here in front of me in my office, I've got a big sign, focus on service.
Mm-hmm.
I think that only when you are, and that's basically the same thing as you're doing, right? It's just wording. But when you're coming from that place of love and truly serve and truly do something for humanity or for the person in front of you, you can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong, exactly. And we really are. We do make the choice before we arrive here to be of service to self or be of service to others. And I'm going to try to not catch myself up in this conversation, because we really do need to fill our own cup before we go out in the world and be of service to others. However, we're seeing this very clearly in the world right now. As a being, as an entity, we come into this life form either committed to being of service to others or of service to self, which is basically service to ego. If you are someone who was chosen to be of service to others, then no matter what you're doing in your life, you are going to be drawn to be of service to others. No matter how you're earning a living, it has nothing to do with it. So just keep that in mind, that when you said yes, before you ever arrived, you said yes. So there's going to be lots of opportunities. Then as a human being, higher self or deeper self, whatever you want to call it, is going to bring you opportunity after opportunity to say yes to the calling of being of service to others. And when you choose it, you'll notice that there's flow. Yes. And when you don't choose it, then the flow kind of blocks up a little bit, right? So really the practice for us in this is to keep saying yes to those possibilities that arise to be of service, no matter what you're doing.
I so agree with you, sister. We are so alike, and I can confirm everything you just said. I know that when I started this business, it was from desire to help people, to make their lives happier. But the awareness I have today and passion for helping, it's nowhere near where it was when I started. It just grows. And who knows what it will be years from now. The same for you, right?
Yes. Because we're constantly shifting the stuff out of the way that blocks that possibility. You know, I have this capacity for being deeply present with another, where they see themselves clearly in my eyes, where they know themselves, they feel witnessed and honored in who they are. Yes. But that has taken a constant practice of getting out of my own way. Mm-hmm. So again, and I know that it's going to keep growing, and it's exciting to me that this evolution does not stop. There is always somewhere else to go. There is always a deepening of it. And so I've become less and less impatient.
Yeah.
Because we get impatient with ourselves, right? Well, why aren't I there yet? Why aren't I like there's some place to be? But there's this possibility of just being so deeply present with the evolution that's happening within you, that in each moment, no matter where you're at, you can look, am I being of service? Can I be of service here? Yeah. My favorite mantra is, I have no idea what I'm doing. Please lead me.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Because I seriously don't know. Like, how am I supposed to know? There's some stuff that I know how to cook, and I know how to,
Yeah.
But really, and even in the work that I do, it really is a matter of, for everything that I do, I just show up and let it happen.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I don't know if you've noticed that, but how much greater the experience is when you don't plan it ahead of time, when you don't think about what you're going to do, but you're just like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and there's lots of people that don't operate that way. I have girlfriends in their businesses, and they really do. They're brilliant planners, and they have everything laid out and organized, and it's great, and it works really well for them. And I used to beat myself up because I couldn't do it. And I even I created a program a month ago and invested some decent dollars into getting a beautiful sales page and doing all the write-up and blah, 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 blah. And I launched it. And then 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. It's way too structured. It doesn't work for me. So I'm restructuring the entire program. So there's a lot more space in it. So that, I don't know how much time we have. Do you want another little story around that?
Yes, absolutely.
So I lead full day guided meditation and channeled healing events for women. I call them Soul Sisters days. So how they've been up to this point, and they're evolving a little bit as well, but I actually bring 5 women to my home for the day, and I cook for them, and we spend the day doing guided meditations, which then open up a lot of teachings, and we do some hands-on work and some different practices, and it just kind of evolves through the day. And so somebody said, well, can you tell me what's going to happen? And I said, well, it's impossible, because this is what happened at the last one. At one point, I'm sitting at the front of the room. There's a woman sitting beside me and another woman facing her. And the one woman is teaching the other woman how to open to the possibility of mediumship. And I'm over here coaching the woman who's teaching the other woman how to open to mediumship. So how exactly do you plan that? And what was really beautiful, of course, is that the entire room gets the impact of it. We all get something from each other's learnings and teachings.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just the 3 of us in our little pod, but everybody else was popping open through this whole thing happening. And you can't plan it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. I'm sure it's amazing experience for these women to be, you're pampering them, you're working with them. So it's the whole experience. That must be beautiful.
Well, they're nurtured, right? We, as women, we often, we have a really easy time giving, but it's more challenging for us to be on the receiving end. And so just to be in the space with each other, holding space for each other that way, and really being safe to come truly into who you are and release stuff that who knows how long you've been carrying it for. That's pretty magical.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you see, Jille, I had no plan for our conversation today. I thought I'm just going to read a short introduction for you, and then the words just came out. I think that, nothing of this was planned, and we don't know each other, really. We just spoke a few words at that event where you spoke, and that was it. And yet it feels so wonderfully comfortable to talk to you.
Thank you.
Having a coffee date with a friend, right? It's So I really appreciate you and your message and what you're doing for this world. And thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having me. Anytime. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to be in conversation and kind of spread the messages that come through. Yeah.
And you're doing it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.